Welcome to the Blue Collar Millionaire Show. I am your host, Chad Hufford, and this is the podcast where we celebrate the unsung heroes of the working world. Each week, we dive into the incredible stories of honest, hardworking folks who have found financial success through grit, determination, and good old-fashioned elbow grease. So if you're ready to be inspired and learn how to turn your hard work into your own success story, you're in the right place. This is the Blue Collar Millionaire Show.
So welcome back to the Blue Collar Millionaire Show. We are revisiting Chad's book, Forging Financial Freedom. We've gone through most of the chapters. We've got 2 left. And the second to last chapter we're going to go through today, Persistence Over Perfection. And I want to start off with something that's it's near and dear to both of our hearts. But right now, we literally just watched the end of baseball season, and we're in the thick of football season. So there's one guy that came to mind as I was prepping for this episode. We grew up watching a lot of Mariners. Loved watching Ichiro. And that dude was like the face of baseball for over a decade, and he was not a home run hitter. He definitely, he did some flashy things. He obviously was a speed demon, great defender. When I think about him, at least for me, the number one thing I think of, or I guess there's 2 things. Number one, I think about his calisthenics routine. I mean, that dude was like always stretching, always before the games, in between innings. So I mean, I think that goes to our point here. But also, he would have that looping single, that looping like one hop to the right fielder. To a lot of people, like not a very exciting play. But he was so good at getting on base, and he just getting those singles. He'd get the odd double, but he was just constantly getting on base. And he still, to this day, has the record for the most hits in a single season. And then secondly, I know this is a little bit closer to your heart, we have Frank Gore. So this dude...
Can we stop before we get into Frank Gore? Because I think, it is this concept of persistence over perfection. I mean, the idea is to create consistency.
Yeah.
To standardize a habit or a pattern of doing something before you try to optimize it, before you try to make it perfect. And so often we try to make things perfect. But I mean, that what you just said about Ichiro, like I've given that exact, not that metaphor, but that same concept. Like it's not about hitting the home runs.
Right.
It's about getting the singles. And if people are persistently getting singles, they don't need the home runs.
Right.
They don't need to find the next Amazon or Facebook or Microsoft or anything like that. If you're broadly diversified, it's boring.
Yeah.
Except when it's terrifying and the market goes down suddenly. But I mean, it's not this super exciting, super sexy. Nobody's going to make a movie about what we do. But it's consistently getting those base hits.
Right.
That's what creates wins. It's not the once in a lifetime or once in a blue moon home run that some people talk about, and they forget all the strikeouts they're making. So,
right. And you go. So
right, Gore.
He has this quote, which granted, I don't know if this quote was translated from Japanese or if he said this in English, but it's a pretty cool quote. I'd never heard this before. If I'm allowed to hit 220, I could probably hit 40 home runs, but nobody wants that. I'm like, dang. I'd kind of like to see that universe where Ichiro goes for home run hitting 1 year. But no, so with Frank Gore, I mean, you and I have talked about him countless times, around the dinner table, just talking about football. But like this guy, I've always felt like, okay, like he's never the best running back in the league. And he did have some really good seasons. And yet his best season statistically, 2006, well, that was Tomlinson's MVP year. So even that year, Gore was not the best running back in the league. He probably had a lot of downs that he played where he wasn't even close to the most talented player on the field. And he's 3rd all time in rushing yards because he kept playing. He kept running and just doing the difficult thing over and over and over.
How many years did he play?
Like 16? It was around 16 years.
Okay.
He has a full season's worth of yards ahead of Adrian Peterson. He has like 1,100 more yards.
So I think the average career for an NFL running back is like 3 seasons. And it's less even if you look at games. I think it's less than like 30 games or something like that because most of those people didn't play that many games.
Right.
And you think about somebody like Frank Gore, not only did he play 16 seasons, a lot of those were full seasons.
Yeah.
He wasn't injured much. I mean, he was unbelievably consistent and stacked up an amazing career because he just kept showing up.
Right.
And I think that's a great lesson too, because that's how investing is. It's not finding the best investment. There is no perfect investment. There's no perfect mutual fund. There's no perfect financial plan. Goals change. Things change all the time. I met with a couple people last week that had huge curveballs thrown at them by life. One was a family situation, another was a health situation. Like, no financial plan can account for that beforehand.
Right.
But you're in the state of planning, so you pivot from that. Dwight Eisenhower, when he was a general, said, "No plan survives first contact with the enemy." And I think a lot of people use planning, not that there's anything wrong with that. We like planning, but they use planning or maybe perfectionism as an excuse for procrastination. Well, we're not going to do anything until we have this thing perfect. And going back to what we said with Frank Gore, though, I mean, yeah, he wasn't ever the best in the league, but he had one of the best careers ever, despite never being the front runner. And a lot of times that goes with investing too. You're not looking for the best investment. You're looking for a good investment. There's no way of identifying best. There's no way of identifying the best plan. The best plan is whatever you're going to stick to consistently. Right. I mean, if you look at, all these different diets, there's low carb and high carb, and there's vegan, which, you don't eat any meat whatsoever. And there's carnivore, where you only eat things that had a mother. But if you look across the board, the number one variable for success with a diet is adherence.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether it's high carb, low, if you look at all the studies. So it's just people doing consistently what most people only will do occasionally. And Frank Gore is a perfect example of just, you show up and you just keep doing, you stay in the game. And just real quick, and I'll let you go on from that. Remember, I was getting in mixed martial arts, and that I want to learn submissions, all these different things, and all the cool stuff you see. This is like early days of UFC. It was a long time ago, and I had a phenomenal instructor. He was always kind of more on the defense stuff. And, one time he explained to me and a couple guys that he was training, he's like, it's about staying in the fight. Like, if you stay in the fight, you will get your opportunity eventually. You don't have to try to get a submission to literally sometimes stick your neck out and end up it's just staying in the fight. And like with a Frank Gore, he stayed in there for 16 years and played at a very high level.
Right.
So he didn't just show up. He showed up with excellence at a very high level. And that's what we're asking investors to do, is just show up. Don't worry about doing the best thing, but execute what you can and do it consistently. And that's where amazing results come from.
Yeah. I mean, like, literally, and I know we're being a little bit football nerds here, but you can't, there isn't a football player that did a better job of just, he knew his exact job and just stuck to it. And literally his last season, he started, I think he played like 13 games and started 11 of them or something. Still got like 700 yards. But no, I mean, this is a principle that is near and dear to my heart. I mean, like, we're brothers. I always joke that, if you look at us, the only slight difference is, you're not quite as ripped as I am. But no, I don't have the fitness journey that you do. It's never something that I've like loved, working out. But I remember texting you, this is like 10 years ago, and I was starting to do push-ups. And what got me consistently to doing push-ups was like doing 15 push-ups a day. Because I wanted to do I want to run 4 miles a day. I want to do this. I want to do that. And I would do it for a couple days. I'd do it for a couple weeks. And I'm like, I can't do this. This sucks. And literally doing 15 push-ups a day. And like, I wasn't posting on Facebook that I was doing 15 push-ups a day. I wasn't telling my friends. But I would do that, and then eventually I got to 20, and then 25, and then 30. And I'm not doing 5,000 push-ups a day or something, but literally just doing something, and then knowing, okay, I can continue doing that, and I'll build on it, and then getting to the point where I still don't enjoy doing push-ups, but if I don't do push-ups, and I push it off to like the end of the night, I feel that like, I don't quite feel right. I want to go do them. I want to go, put in the work. And I use that example just because you talk about somebody who's a real life, like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do the hard work, but a little bit over time and then building on it is key.
And you built the habit first. And that's what is important for people to take out of that, is you built the habit before you tried to perfect the habit. Before you, like you said, nobody's posting on Instagram, I did 15 push-ups today. Yeah. I mean, Jocko Willink is probably not going to instant message you to pat you on the back for that one.
Right.
You're not going to be any Goggins journey with that, but it's you did the thing.
Yeah.
And you made it consistent. In his book, James Clear writes about, the book is Atomic Habits, but he writes about, I think he calls it the 2-minute drill, but like, what can you do for 2 minutes?
Yeah.
So you want to read 10 books this year. Don't make reading if you haven't read a book in a year ever, don't make your goal this week trying to read a full book. Read for 2 minutes.
Right.
You haven't worked out in a while. Walk for 2 minutes. Is what can you do in 2 minutes? So your 15 push-ups is a perfect example of that. But on the flip side of that, you have people who, January 1st, they wake up, they join a gym, probably January 2nd, they're hungover on the 1st, but they join a gym and, they're trying to do like Navy SEAL workouts. They haven't been in a gym in 15 years and they burn out. Maybe they do it for 2 or 3 days, but pretty soon they're miserable. It's not a sustainable habit. And it's interesting you mentioned push-ups, because one of the examples that I have in the book is a guy that I bumped into at a conference. It was actually a Dave Ramsey conference. And he started talking to me about, hey, what do you do for this thing and that thing? And he wanted to know, what is the best chest exercise? Yeah. And we kind of went back and forth, and I go into the story a little bit more detail in the book and make some humorous comments about it, because it was a very awkward moment.
Personal stalker.
Yeah, I mean, it was the guy was making eye contact with my chest during our. Anyways, but I said the perfect chest exercise is the one you're going to do every week.
Right.
Yeah, that's the main thing. And he asked like what your secret was, and I told him, I said I haven't missed a workout, and I can't remember how long. It'd been like 10 years at that point. But what was really interesting about that is years later, I bumped into the same guy at another conference, and I thought, oh my gosh, here we go again. Because a lot of people, when they ask financial advice, health advice, things like that, like you said, they don't actually want to do the hard work. And I'll be honest, like when he came up, I didn't recognize it at first. And then he said, hey, you probably don't remember me, but, and he explained it. And then I did. I was like, oh, great. Here we go again. But the reason I didn't recognize him is because he looked completely different. And he told me, he said, I think it was like 60 pounds that he had lost. Wow. And he told me that he couldn't really do much with bench press. He couldn't really do much with all these different things. It started with push-ups because it was all he could do.
Yeah.
And that started a habit with strengthening his upper body. But then it changed his eating habits. It changed what he did for cardiovascular. Like it was, to throw another James Clear thing out there, it became a kind of an anchor for him to make other habits. So he used the push-ups to start building a habit, then optimize it, and then built on top of it. So yeah, I mean, it's those simple things, and there's nothing sexy about push-ups. Right. I mean, they're boring, they're simple, but they're hard. And that's the type of consistency that we're talking about in investing. It's weathering storms. I was talking to somebody on Friday that they've been with us for several years now. We've ridden through 4 major market declines. They're not fun. They're hard. And there'll be a lot more of them, but they've stayed consistent. They haven't bailed out. So, I mean, it's there's no perfect way to do it. You just have to persevere. And that's why this is more than just having discipline. I think, discipline, obviously working out takes discipline. A lot of things investing takes discipline, but it's discipline under pressure.
Right.
That's what really takes persistence. When you're up against an obstacle and you still execute the thing that you need to do, you still do the hard thing, regardless of what current circumstances are.
So you talk about an anchor for habits, and
sorry, it was actually a keystone. It was a keystone
okay.
habit. It was something. It wasn't anchor. That's something else. But James, he calls it a keystone. It's something that you build on. It's something you align all your other habits around. So that created a change. And this is where I've seen finance too, is when people start making changes in their finance, because it takes so much discipline, because it takes so much perseverance. When people start being more intentional about their finances, it often is a keystone habit. It becomes something that, okay, I can build on that habit. And a lot of times it's not even about finance. We've seen people whose marriages get better, whose their health gets better, their businesses get better. They start having better conversation. I mean, because they learn persistence and discipline in this one area as a ripple effect into other areas of life.
Well, I mean, we love the book Atomic Habits in this office and James Clear, and that verbiage of I'm the type of person who. And so it's, if I actually am willing to ask that question, I'm going to really transform my life. I'm the type of person who is willing to do push-ups. I'm the type of person who is willing to say no to, whatever that junk food is. Or I'm the type of person who is going to put money away, even though things are tight and I could really use it in some other way, or I'd like the new car or whatever. And where my mind goes is, again, just going back to the push-ups. I've had this thought many times. We talked with my boys about this. Is, again, I'm not saying, I'm not doing 1,000 push-ups, but let's say if I do 60 push-ups, the hardest push-up sometimes feels like maybe it's the last one, but I don't actually think that's the hardest one. And I was like, sometimes it feels like the first push-up is the hardest. But for me, at least, the hardest thing out of doing 60 push-ups is actually going from standing to getting on the floor.
Sure.
Because once I'm there, I'm going to do the push-ups. But if I'm standing, if I'm eating a bowl of ice cream, if I'm watching a movie, it's hard for me to get on the floor. But once I'm there, I'm going to do the work. But, as long as I'm standing up and I'm comfortable, it's really easy to tell myself the story of like, I'll do push-ups later, but just doing the thing. Chris Tachi, he was, obviously he's a friend, client, and one of our first podcast guests. He's got this great quote that just encapsulates all of this. And I think this is from his grandfather or his uncle. A steady drip puts a hole in the rock. And that takes absolutely one thing, that takes persistence.
Yeah, it takes persistence, and again, there's no perfection to that. It's a very simple thing. It's we talk about in the book about mastering the mundane. Doing the things that aren't going to be celebrated, but that eventually will make a hole in the rock. That seem impossible in any given moment, but you keep stacking those habits. You keep executing the hard thing, and that's where, again, I think a lot of people get themselves in trouble. Where we learn and you can drown in a sea of information. We research, but we don't actually act. And one of the things that I've been even trying to teach my family, but reminding myself too, is that education without execution is merely entertainment. Like at some point, if we're not doing things, we're not getting down on the floor to do the push-ups, we're learning about it, we're listening to podcasts about fitness, at some point we have to be realizing that no, I'm entertaining myself. Yeah. Until I actually am going to take that knowledge and implement it with consistency, with persistence, then I am merely entertaining myself. And that's hard, but you have to be willing to execute, to actually do the work. And that's a big part of what we do here, is getting people to take the ideas, take their goals, but put a plan into practice, and then diligently and persistently follow that plan. What's the Chinese proverb? The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And it sounds so cliche, but it's exactly what you're talking about with the push-ups. It's like, before you do a push-up, you have to get down on the floor, you have to get in position.
Yeah.
And that's what this chapter is about. And that's what makes so many of the principles that we teach and coach work. Because in the moment, they're usually just hard.
Yeah. And I mean, the next conversation we're going to have on the next episode, we'll dive into the final chapter. And I mean, it's kind of the perfect segue, because I always think of the Jordan Peterson quote, start where you can start. Like, no matter who you are, no matter where your life's at, start where you can start. And everybody's got something that they can attack. And so we'll dive into that in the next conversation. But thank you for being willing to dive into this one.
Yeah, thanks, Logan.
Thanks for listening to the Blue Collar Millionaire Show. We hope this episode has been inspiring and beneficial to you. If you want help on your journey to financial freedom, reach out to us at veritasalaska.com. We'd love to sit down over a cup of coffee with you, either here in our office or virtually, and get to know you and your needs. And though this podcast is free of charge, we do ask that you please do us two quick favors. If you enjoyed the episode, give our pod a great rating on iTunes or whatever podcast platform you use, and also give us a follow on Instagram. We hope you have a wonderful day filled with gratitude and intentionality. God bless.